You are deserving of happiness. You're deserving of healing. You are deserving of joy.
Whatever your dream is, whatever your passion is, work towards it and put God first. God has to be in your life.
Wanted to use the skills and the training, hopefully to advocate on behalf of the community. I'm able to say that on Chop It Up. Be prepared to keep it real.
Hello and welcome to the Chop It Up podcast, the show that's unfiltered and unapologetic. Each episode will bring you closer to finding your purpose, so be sure to listen all the way through. Now, here's your host, Carmisha Superville.
Welcome, guys. Welcome back to the Chop It Up podcast. You guys, this is the home of unfiltered conversation by today's innovative minds right here in our community. Guys, I am so excited about tonight's conversation. You guys, as you know, your girl, Carmisha Superville, we're speaking with a lovely young woman. I'm so excited for this conversation, you guys. And we have actually been trying to coordinate this conversation for the longest. So I'm excited that she finally was able to show up. You guys, we are speaking with Fahria Tasneem. She is an enthusiastic MBA candidate at Hofstra University. She has extensive experience in project management, including private and development sectors. She's originally from Bangladesh and migrated to the United States to pursue her postgraduate studies. Guys, let me just tell you, she's an advocate. She truly believes in empowerment and especially woman empowerment. She is classically trained in music for the last 12 years. She loves crime series on the weekend. And fun fact, she actually owned a cafe back in Bangladesh. So that's pretty awesome. I'm so honored to have my dear friend on this podcast. Fahria, how are you? Welcome to Chop It Up.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to say it again. You really do pump me up. I honestly can't believe that I'm finally doing this because it's been a while. Because I remember meeting you at the International Women's Day Conference and you were so amazing. So from that day onward, and like when I got to know there will be opportunity to do something like this, I was pretty stoked about it. So thank you so much for having me here. It feels pretty amazing.
Yo, I'm so honored to speak to you. Honestly, just learning about your culture, learning about you, and just the story, like even the conversation tonight. Guys, we're going to entitle this conversation Destination Unboxed. Just follow the flow. Destination Unboxed. But, talking to you about the story of an immigrant student, right? Talk us through that. Like, who is the Fahria that grew up in Bangladesh to the one that migrated to the United States? Walk us through that journey.
So my journey is actually pretty interesting because it took a lot of twists and turns. Like the fact that I'm here in America right now, that was actually a very last moment decision because because COVID did play a big role there, right? I was supposed to start my MBA or at least my postgrad maybe 2 or 3 years after I was done with my undergrad. And that did not happen because COVID hit right away because I always wanted to do my MBA. So I did require a certain amount of experience for that, correct? And I thought, you know what, the best thing will be because I did my undergrad in Malaysia and I was pretty blessed to have a family who did support me with the idea or with the, wish of actually getting out of Bangladesh and just getting your experience and knowledge and education from, from different culture, from different country. And I think that's how my actual journey started in terms of education. I went to Malaysia. I did my undergrad there, came back in 2017, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, 2017 it is. And I started working there, started working as a private, in a private sector and slowly transitioned to the development sector. And it was pretty amazing. However, I think working in such a society, back in Bangladesh, and especially when you grew up in such an open-minded or such an open family background, it does get a bit tricky at times. And because I did not realize, or I knew I did want to do my MBA or my postgrad after a while or somewhere, but outside Bangladesh, but you do get attached to your roots. You know what I mean? You come back after so many years and you think you know what, I'm just going to stay here, stay back, do my thing. And, because education in Bangladesh, it is enhancing, right? But they're just still like, I think that's where we're going to talk before we go into the show today. Like how, especially for women, it gets a bit difficult. It gets a bit, like it gets overwhelming just to staying in one place and hearing like so many, not judgment, but like, opinions from everyone else. So at one point, fast forward, like 5 years later, I decided, you know what, this is the time I'm going to start my MBA journey. And I remember like reaching out to my dad and I was like, Baba, it's time. Like COVID, I know COVID is happening and everything, because I was supposed to, in fact, go to Germany for my postgrad, but the whole COVID situation, made me go like a full 360 turn. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen because the whole immigration situation and everything. Not gonna lie, it did take me a bit of time just to convince not my dad, but like, my other family members, like at this age, I do want to get out of the country and, somewhere in America, because it's like almost like opposite of the globe from Bangladesh and America. It was like a 27 hours of flight, right? Wow. So yeah, it was a lot. So, but finally I did it. It did take me a lot of convincing, but here I am. I came here in 2022. Last year in January. Okay. So I still kind of feel a bit brand new at times, not gonna lie. But it has been an amazing journey. Like from the moment I stepped here as a student and as someone, because back home I did, in fact, at times like, hear from other people like, being in, because we do have like a stereotype, because I do come from a brown and a Muslim country, right? So coming to America with a complete different culture, and we did have like past incidents which does put us in sort of like a stereotype,
those brackets. Yes,
exactly. Yes. Right. So I think more than me, my family was definitely a bit concerned about that, but again, that's what we have to do. We just can't sit back hoping, or like just within the bracket staying and go like, might not as well just get out of my safe zone. And that's what I did. Took me a bit, again, definitely did take me a bit of convincing, but after a year of fighting and everything, here I am, just started my MBA journey, and it's been, again, as I said, it's been really fun.
Yeah, that's beautiful. How have you navigated those spaces, right? Being that you newly arrived, how have you navigated those spaces, and being at such a prestigious college as Hofstra University, how have you been able to successfully navigate that?
So initially I'm not going to say it was difficult, but it was a bit overwhelming because what I realized, like in my head, there was always a comparison that I did, like me going to Malaysia for my undergrad when I was 19, and me coming here almost like just few years before turning 30, in not even few years. That's like very small bracket there, right? So there's a huge difference in both of the journey, right? So what I did, and if anyone wants to come to me for advice, like what not to do, I would actually suggest not to have comparison with, your previous experiences, because all experiences, all journeys, they're like brand new, right? So back in my head, when I first came here, I was always comparing like, oh, how many friends I had back then, how not even back home, but like in Malaysia, right? I started my undergrad in like day 3, I had like 5-10 friends, right? Even like for me in like day 3, making this many friends in day 3, that was a lot. And here, because by now, and like MBA is a different thing, right? You meet a lot of people here, but it's important to mention how you meet people of different age gap or the age group, basically, right? So it's not always easy to make friends here. Initially, it is like a journey just of your own. Like you would feel alone a bit at times, right? And I did that. But again, like I had to constantly remind myself, like, the fight I had to go through back home, and the fact that I'm here, and the reason that I'm here is not just like, get a jump start in my career, but to actually get like a good degree from a good college. And I got into Hofstra with a certain amount of scholarship as well. So the fact that, my hard work, my experience was basically recognized, it was acknowledged by the college, and it's a difficult like program to get into as well. So that is a reminder I had to, keep myself, I had to remind myself constantly. But again, it's been a little more than a year. Definitely the first 10 months was difficult, but one by you just get used to it.
Get used to it. I love that. Let's talk about that a little bit. You spoke about, what I heard so far is fearlessness. Initially, what you spoke about, going out and stepping on that leap of faith. But I also heard scholarship. So let's talk about that in terms of students that may be listening to this podcast and living overseas. Because, girl, let me tell you, we do got international listeners. Oh yeah, we got
That's
listeners
amazing.
in Poland. Yes, thank you, girl.
That is
We
actually pretty
international.
amazing.
Thank you. But let's talk about that. So how did you obtain that scholarship? Were you applying back in Bangladesh? How did you obtain that scholarship in order to, fund your education here in the States?
So before I start this, I would like to point out that because Bangladesh is a developing country, and it's just not Bangladesh, any side of developing country, when we're starting to think about education or moving abroad, right? Like places like Europe or America, it does require a good amount of money. Right? Like you have to think about you have to even if you're not financially solid, but you have to have a good financial plan. And I do have a brother, and he's still pursuing his education. He's a younger brother, right? So despite the fact I wanted to have a smooth journey of my own, I knew I couldn't depend completely on my family for this. But at the same time, I couldn't hold myself back in the hope that, my family will figure it out somehow, or let's just wait a few years. So yeah, as an international student, or I heard from other students after coming in here, it was a intense research for 6-7 months. Right. COVID definitely did help, because we were all locked down, nothing was happening. So that kind of helped me go through a full research on what universities I want to, because it always in terms of finance, not always you can go to universities that, you want to, because there's still financial restrictions there, in terms of, not just it's all about living there and how can you fund your education. So when I got to know about Hofstra, and I did see that they do require a certain amount of experience, because it's for their postgraduate, at the end of the day. So that kind of helped me out a lot, though, because I sat for an interview. I told them my experience, the fact that I have not just from private sector, but development sector as well. I did have my own entrepreneurship journey. And with all my hard work, I did have a good undergrad score as well. So that definitely helped me. However, I did mention I did get a certain amount of scholarship, right? It wasn't 100%. But again, as an international student, any amount is a good amount. What I would suggest, or what I did, it was a bit disheartening to am I missing this opportunity out? Because, I did not get 100%. Because I don't want to reach out to my family saying what should I do? Do you want to help me? Because we're just not in that, or at least I feel or even in our culture, right? The more you grow up, at one point you feel you just can't depend on your family at this point.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right? So again, my research started, and it took me a lot of guts to accept it, or just, to know that, to believe whatever I'm going to do, from now onward, it has to be completely on me. And I did end up taking student loans. I'm still starting on student loans. Is it the most smoothest decision, or has it been the most easiest journey so far starting with student loan? I would say no, because there's always this constant, tension, this pressure, oh, you have to give a certain amount of repayment, and there's always this thing in your head that, oh, once you're done with your studies and everything, how will you be able to afford the rest of the loan payments, right? Because that definitely increases. And that's the hope, and that's, I feel should be one of the target in not just pursuing your MBA, but in this process, network as much as you can, because you can secure a certain career for yourself. So that despite the fact there will be turbulence in that, you'll somehow cope up with it.
I love that. And you're absolutely right. Financial responsibility is very imperative when you are considering traveling overseas.
Yeah.
And also having your family's support, but not leaning into it or depending on it. Talk about that a little bit. What are some challenges, which I really love this conversation because it's new to me. What are some challenges that international students have when traveling overseas? What are some challenges that you have faced or that you have seen or experienced with other students as well?
I will actually like include not just these like things that I face, but after like talking to other people and everything, it was different because we were like, oh, you're international, I'm an international. We were supposed to like somehow supposed to have similar, barriers or similar like difficulties, but no, every student has their own difficulties, right? For example, again, like what I said, the whole finance thing, it takes a whole lot of planning just to like, from the scratch, like, oh, getting the plane ticket to like, what will you be like eating the first day you land there? Like it takes a lot of planning to do that, right? But apart from financial restraints or like planning, another thing that I personally did not face here in America, but I definitely did face back in Malaysia. And there are a lot of students whom I spoke to like here, they do face it here as well, is a language barrier.
Yes.
Language barrier is something because, for example, if someone comes from Europe, right? He or she's an international student too, but probably they wouldn't have that barrier or like difficulty, adjusting here because at the end of the day, it is English. You know what I mean? Like there's still a similar base, so you can adjust. But for people, for example, from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, India, whose mother tongue or like the strongest language is maybe not English, and it's not always easy for them to like communicate well or like, express themselves. And I think that's where they're lacking here as well now. And that's what I faced, in fact, back in Malaysia, because despite the fact majority spoke in English there, but their concentrated language or the language they were more comfortable with was Malay, right? So there were a lot of misunderstanding, like just like in the 4 years, like, oh, if I want something in terms of food or anything. In fact, it was like, because I remember someone wanted to reach out to me regarding just like, I don't know, be either my friend or just like they're going through something in class, right? But their strongest suit was not English and my strongest suit was not Malay. So there was always like, a barrier there. But at the end of the day, like the more you stay in a certain place, language stops being a difficulty. Like it does, it becomes a difficulty initially, but like, as long as you get to know the person, you're just melding with them, you're just talking to them. At one point you start having your own language. So that's, yeah, exactly. And that I hope people can do the same here as well, who are in America, whose English is not their strongest suit. But apart from language, this other thing that's kind of working with like on me right now is the feeling of being homesick. Or like I do get homesickness, and it's been a bit tough, not gonna lie, and especially because it's the month of Ramadan here. Yeah, so first of all, Ramadan Mubarak. Let me just start by saying that. But also, so this is a time when, like you're supposed to be with your family all the time and like, come back home, have a whole feast that we call iftar. And not just in my religion, but like, there are other religions, like Holi was there for the for the Hindu society. And there were other upcoming religious events, right? So at the end of the day, even if it's not about religious events, like at the end of the day, you come back home from a stressful work day or like a stressful study day. All you want to do is talk to your mom or, want to reach out to your dad, and like FaceTiming and calling them over the phone is usually not the most satisfying thing, because at times you just want to have that physical touch. And I think usually, because I was talking to someone a few days back, an international student as well. And I was telling her like, I'm so homesick right now. And I go back home, I don't feel like studying, right? Like after a work day, and I know I have to come back home, I have to like get my assignments done. And because that, like the feeling is so heavy, I end up like, I stop doing everything. I just lie down on my bed, and that can be a bit depressing. So, and she completely agreed with me though. She's like, girl, I have not started in 1 week now, because all I want you to do is just like go back home, talk to them, and, just feel a bit home as much as possible. And the whole time gap and everything, especially when you're coming from like developing or like Asian country, right? The time gap is so huge. Like, for example, right now, if it's 7 o'clock here, it'll be like 8 a.m. back home. So it's like, even if I'm free right now, I can't just pick up my phone and go like, hi, mom, what are you doing? Because she's sleeping. So I think these are like small factors that really affect international students. But I also feel like these are the factors that makes international student more strong and unique.
More resilient.
More resilient.
Yeah, more
exactly.
resilient. I love that. Wow, that's powerful. All right. So in those moments where you're not feeling full, in those moments where you are, questioning your purpose, why am I here? What do? How do you overcome it? Because you have such a light about you. And that story that you're telling me, it can be daunting. So what do you do when you're not feeling like showing up? Like, I really need a hug from my mom right now. I really need to break bread with my dad right now.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I do something very simple, very common, and I'm pretty sure everyone else does that. I literally get out of my room, knock, because I do live with 2 other housemates. I called them. I was like, do you want to go grab some coffee? Like, I just want to distract myself, right? Yeah. And having said that, it is so important to have someone here, like when you're on your journey on your own. And I get, for so many people, it's difficult making friends. They're not that, because I do know a lot of introverted friends that I have, right? I have to go and poke them. It's like, hey, do you want to go out? And like, just, do you want to talk and everything? But just talking to someone just makes you feel like you are home, because this is my home right now. I know my like immediate family is not here, right? But at least I do have my friends here. I'm blessed to have such amazing and supportive mentors. Especially like where I work right now. There's someone I work with, and she is literally my everything at this point, right? Because if I'm having like issue, be it in my personal life, love life, wherever that is, the next thing I know, I go to office, I knock at her door. I was like, I need your time. I need to sit with you and just talk to you. And I think it's really important, because her and I, we're not the same age, right? She's actually much older than me. But that's the thing, like, when you're abroad as an international student or anywhere that you're traveling, it's so important not just to make friends, but to like know other people from different culture, different race, different age, because that what makes you feel wholesome again at the end of the day. It literally like fills up few gaps.
I love that. Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is mentorship. What I'm hearing is listening to our mental health and sometimes stepping away from our current situation, stepping away from it. But also I'm hearing community. I'm hearing building a community, building an ecosystem to also fuel you on those days that you don't want to show up, that is just too hard to show up.
Yeah.
I love that. Tell me about education in Bangladesh. Tell me about education there, the differences in the education system, especially for girls, and comparisons in the United States.
So I did do my high school back home. And as I've mentioned, after my high school, I did leave. And honestly, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my high school experience, right? My closest friends right now are from my high school. Like, they're my do or die at this point. But when it comes to being yourself in that society, and especially in that education system, I feel like Bangladesh still can do a lot better, or like enhance their system. Like, for example, let me give you just a small story, right? Back in school, I actually was not a good student. My high school grade is actually not that great, right?
Wow.
And it always bugged me. And I know my family, my parents, my mom and dad always told me like, it's okay. As long as, you get like a passing grade, we're fine with it. But I can tell, because we had like a lot of competition back home, right? And for them to see someone else's son or daughter doing so good, and here I was not doing that great. So it was demotivating for like not only for them, but for myself as well. And it was a bit disheartening. Like, why can't I do it? Right. But my whole education system or not even system, like my whole educational background changed right after I went to Malaysia, right? And whatever I'm doing right now, because from high school, who just had like passing grades, from Malaysia, I ended up graduating with not only with the first class honors, but also with the best student award. So that was actually my turning point, not just for myself, but probably for my mom and dad as well. And my mom's like expecting the same thing right now. I was like, Mom, that's too much pressure.
Yeah,
But
no.
I'm down. Like, no, maybe I can. Let's see what happens. But see, this problem and it took me a while to realize where the problem was back home and here, or like back home compared to, any other education system, is that the fact that you have to do so good, the fact that education is so important is like emphasized so much that we were kids of what, like, for example, me as a student, right? Like me as a teenager, I know education was important, but I would have loved to explore more of my extracurriculum side, right? There was no balance back home. Growing up in my high school, it was always about education and how will I graduate, like with what marks I'll graduate. Because years down the lane right now, no one asked me in an interview what I got back in high school.
Right.
But at least I can tell them like, oh, I played basketball. I was editor-in-chief, photography editor-in-chief for a yearbook. And that did have a lot of impact on who I am as a person right now. And I wish that was more focused, because I remember when I was working with the yearbook, and photography is something I really wanted to pursue, like even professionally, right? However, it did not happen because at some point my family or like, other people got their thoughts kind of got influenced, saying that if I do have my focus on something else, how will I graduate with good marks? And that pressure always worked on me. And I get their point, but it's just that in order to succeed in education, I need to have that balance. I need to have that free zone where I can be myself, take a breather, regain all my thoughts and just sit and study again. But I did not have that. I woke up, I studied. I went back to sleep. I woke up, I studied again. Like every hour was just based on that, right? But like when I came to Malaysia, or even right now, if I come back home and I feel like, I don't feel like studying right now, and I kind of want to do something else just to like, feel a bit better, not just about my situation, I get out with my friends or do something about it, right? And that kind of takes like, it just makes me feel better, in terms of my environment, like, oh, I do have a very free environment. And in terms of studies, what I realized, as I said, like in Bangladesh, it was so strict, the education system. But here, at least what I feel like about, being in an American system, or even like any other system which is not a typical developing countries, I feel like they do know how to like give the importance of having a balance in a student's life. Like, for example, my postgrad MBA is supposed to be a lot about like studies and everything, because not only it's investment about time or money, but it's also a big investment, about who you will be as a person and end of your postgrad, right? And my university, and I'm so glad that, I decided to like choose Hofstra, because my university emphasizes a lot on that, like be it through club activities, be it through like just networking event, having a stress relief event, those are important. I don't remember having any of it back home. So like, the fact that it changed me not as a student, but as a person, more confident, it really brought like a whole different person in me. So I really wish Bangladesh does have like, or they decide to have more like the more importance on the balance of life rather than, being all about education and everything. Because I would like to in fact point out another the small attributes of mine, like back home growing up, because it was so strict and there was always so much competition. It's like I'd rather have a competition with myself than someone else, because that will help me grow. And being in Bangladesh did not help me grow at all. I did not like talking to other people that much. I was not good at public speaking. And I was just this one timid person who was like, comfortable in my own circle, right? And now here I am just talking for different clubs, advocating for social change, and making like, I'm everywhere I go, I do talk to someone, and then I end up coming back home telling my housemates like, oh, guess what? I made a new friend. So I feel like environment like this, or like just the fact that, there needs to be a start as how you grow as a person and a student, like it has a lot of impact on how you become like years down the lane.
I agree. I totally agree. It's so crazy because I used to be shy. A lot of folks are always like, no, not you. And I'm like, I was totally shy because so you and I, we do share similar stories. I also migrated to the United States when I was a kid. When I was little, I migrated and I went to school here. And I remember my school experience, junior high, it wasn't that pleasant. I was bullied. Girl, I was bullied. And I was just recently having a conversation with my brother. And he was like, what? You were bullied? And I'm like, yeah. I remember one time with my little two friends, we were sitting in class and we were just talking about, culture. I guess there was like a music video had just came out. And I've always been that girl. I always like talking about music or what's trending. And I was just talking to my friends and saying, I really like this music video. Da, da, da. And this girl, Fahria, this girl all the way in the back, ain't nobody was even talking to her. But anyway, she just blurted out. She was like, oh, how you gonna like that video, but you can't even speak English?
Wow.
Yo, that broke me. I was just like, in that moment, I was just like dumbstruck. I was like, what? And the crazy thing is like, yo, that really woke me up to see like kids can be mean, and especially in the States where, we live in kind of like a free society, kind of like it's different because me going to primary school back in my country, it was different. Like you said, it was very strict, very rigid. Like you couldn't play no games. And coming here was a little bit more freer, but kids can be mean. And
it can be.
That really, for a long time, that daunted on me. So public speaking was never something that I was comfortable with, but I was forced into it, like kind of like you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, once you have a passion, that's what I love about you. Reading your bio and how you advocate for other people. Once you have a passion, it cannot stay dormant.
Yeah.
It cannot, and so that's the beautiful thing about growing and our journey, right? So
let me
listen,
piggyback on like something you just said about like bullying, right? So you came here as an immigrant and like, again, adjusting and everything takes some time. But tell me, why was I bullied back home in my own safety space? Kids can be mean, but more than kids, a society can be mean. Because I remember I actually stopped playing basketball. I mean, after a while, but like it was so disheartening just to play basketball because I just wanted to follow my passion, right? Yeah. But I come from a society where women have a certain stereotype and like in fact, not stereotypes, like standard beauty standard.
Yes.
That society wants them to follow. But here's the thing. I was just 14. I was just 15. I want to play. Tell me why. Did I go back home and there was one of my aunt looking at me, staring at me from top to down and telling me, you got very dark just playing under the sun. Who will marry you? Why was this a question? Why was I asked this question at 15? Why was everyone else coming to my mom suggesting how I should be losing weight, how I should be getting fairer, and I shouldn't be like playing that much outside, not to do any like, stuff which are not feminine. Oh. I feel like these are the stuff. And you know what's sad? Because this happened to me back when I was 15. I'm turning 29 in a few months. These are still the same difficulties or same questions that like kids have been asked back home. Like I know my nieces, they just come to me and they're like, something happened to me, and that breaks my heart. I was like, you are 12. This is not something that should happen to you. And it's sad because it comes from your own society. It comes from the place that you're supposed to feel protected, that you're supposed to feel safe. So this is something that needs to be like deleted. We need to call it out. We need to help more, not just women who are trying to have a career, but like for the kids, for the girls, because they need something to look up to. Because I wish I had someone to tell me or to like have my back when someone told me, oh, you're getting darker or you're getting fatter. Fatter is not a word that should be used for kids who are just trying to just be themselves. They're kids at the end of the day. And that had so much impact, like negative impact on me growing up. And that was one of the reasons why I feel like I didn't do good in school. Because even the kids back in school, there were people within my own circle, like, thank God they realized it now, but there were people within my own circle. If I walked or if I fell down there, like, oh, maybe an earthquake happened, they think that was funny.
Wow.
But like, I stood up, ran back, and I was like, I'm not even that fat. Like, these are
Right.
not the questions I'm supposed to have at like 13, 14. I'm supposed to look
Yeah.
forward to what I'm going to do in my lunch break, or after school ends, when I go back home, which series I'm going to watch, what conversation I'm going to have with my mom. Rather than I went back home, I remember like, just searching, asking my mom, like, Mom, what pack or face pack can I make so that, it clears my skin? No, I shouldn't be asking that. If one advice I want to give to my young self is like, you are so beautiful in your own way. Like, you
Yes.
shouldn't have been like sitting in corner of your bed, just crying about the fact that some random boy who doesn't even know what is right or wrong in the world right now is telling you that you're really fat, that you can cause an earthquake.
Wow, girl. Wow, that's some powerful stuff there. So, with that said, what did you, and you being totally honest, did your parents create a safe space for you? Were they both mom and dad during that time? Did they create a safe space? Because I know before you answer me, I know with me, what kept me so long and has carried me through my life is my family values. Like, even though the world could be mean and has been, my family, my grandmother, being raised by her and knowing that I was beautiful on her side, and my dad and my mother.
Mhm.
So did you have a safe space, at least at home?
I definitely did. I still believe I'm blessed and I'm so privileged to have such a supporting family who not only like helped me grow, but supported every decision of my career, right? But see, here's the thing. My family, like, doesn't matter how supportive they are, they're still human being at the end of the day, and they still live in the same society that I live, right?
That's right.
So it's very easy to get influenced, or very easy to get like, distracted from what other people tell you, from what other people constantly like telling you about your daughter, about, or how you should like raise your children. And again, that's so wrong. Because I remember my dad has always been the one who was so supportive about like, me. Like, he didn't really care about how I looked or how I did. It was just fun talking to him. And it was pretty fun talking to my mom as well. But it's just that, how like, I'm not going to say like, oh, women love to gossip, but they do love to come and like, whenever in that sort of situation or a society. So I would say like my mom, she tried till date to be so supportive. And I really appreciate that about her. But her thought process does get a bit influenced at times. Like, like when I was young, it was about how I looked. And she didn't want to come and be straight like, oh, you don't look good today, or like, why are you getting dark? But maybe in a very subtle way, because she doesn't want anyone else to like tell me directly. It was just her way of protecting. And that was what happened like in a young self, right? But like as I grew up, it slowly transitioned to, oh my God, your daughter's 25. Why isn't she married yet? Why is she still single? I remember it was such a big struggle, like not just for me, but my family as well. In fact, it's still a struggle, because I call her up and she's like, oh, this person sent you a proposal, but I told them that you want to finish your education first. I was like, first of all, thank you so much for saying that, like saying that to the other person. But just that it's always followed up with, but yeah, they're like, are you sure you don't want to get your daughter married right now? Are you sure like she will have a proper guy to marry her? This sentence, it just gets me so much when someone like from my own society tells me that if I'm worth for a guy, if I'm overqualified for a guy, why do I have to continue my journey based on who will I get married in future? Why couldn't it be like, oh, you have an amazing career, you'll definitely, have like, even if you get arranged marriage, because it's so popular in our society. Like, even if you get arranged marriage, there, your career is pretty impressive. But instead of that, I have people going like, guys wouldn't like overqualified girls. But what if like your salary is higher than the guy? I'm not here trying to make a career for a guy. First of all, I'm here trying to make a career for myself, how I can support my parents, how I can make like a safe space for my family. And when I do meet a guy, when I do get married, whether like to a guy, he'll be a part of my space, safe space. But it's not going to get influenced with what he wants and how it has to like always, you know, I hate the fact when people go like it's guy over a girl.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Girl, you're speaking to the choir right now. Let's get real. We got to get real quick.
Let's do this.
Hold up. Listen, about 2 weeks ago, I was speaking to a friend of mine. He knew me for a lot of years. Actually, he's my DJ because, you know, I have an events business.
Yes.
So, girl, we talking. We just having a quick chit chat. He doesn't know my personal life that much because we have always kept it professional. But nonetheless, I opened up a little bit and allowed him to come in. And so as he and I is chit-chatting, he literally mouthed these words and says to me, "Oh, I don't want you to miss your chance." So I was like, miss my chance? What do you mean? You know, this is what he said to me. Fahria, I was just like blown away. I literally sat on my couch and I started to laugh because it's not only about culture, it's about societal norms.
Mm-hmm.
This guy said to me, no lie, he said, "You are a woman of a particular age." Hold up. I said, whoa.
No.
I said, what do you mean by a particular age? Wait, how old do you think I am? He was like, no, I know you were like in your 40s. I said, what? Now, hold up, pause. There's nothing for anyone in their 40s and not married. So that's another problem by itself, right? But the fact that you even think I was in my 40s, I'm like, how dare you? But, which I'm not. I'm in my 30s, but it's that clicking, that societal norm, that pressure that society, whether visible or invisible, that they put on women. We are not worthy unless we have a ring. And if we don't have a ring by a certain time, something's wrong with her. And I'm like, we got to shift that mindset. He said to me in that conversation, he said some things that was so telling and literally what you're saying right now. He said, you gotta remember, you're too ambitious. He was basically alluding to the fact that I am too successful, whatever that means. I am too much of, I guess, alpha female. I hate that with a passion. But he basically said that you would not get someone like on your level because you are too alpha, you're too successful, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
That doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't even make sense. And the thing about it is, it's like, we got to come to understanding, like, we're just two different sex, right? Females and males. And when you are someone that knows who you are, right? Because like you said about growing up in your culture, you know who you are. You're not going to settle for any knick-knack or knucklehead. You know who you are. So when that person meets you and you arrive, you complement each other and there's synchrony and you synchronize.
Correct.
So where are we going with this? You got to get married by a certain age, or you're too overqualified, so you can't get certain men. You have to suppress your superpowers because no, you're too much right now. Where are we going with that thought process, and how can we change it?
And see, I completely agree with you, right? And let's just start by saying that I understand where our society comes from. And you know what's funny? Like, because you come from a different culture, I come from a different culture, but it's sad and funny at the same time that we both are stuck in the same ideology, like a very troubling ideology. The fact that our time is over. You have no idea how many people, like, they looked at me and they're like, aren't you a bit old, like, to like pursue your studies right now? And I was like, well, first of all, what does that mean? Second of all, they go like, there's always a good time. There's always a right time, right? I'm going to emphasize on this. There's always a right time to get married. And I agree with that. But my point is, because you have set a certain time as a right time for you or for the society, doesn't mean that's the right time for me. That does not mean that I have to get married as soon as I turn 25. I have to get married even at 35 when I'm mentally ready, when I know that I'm financially ready. I know that I am ready to have like someone else in my life and start a family. That is the moment I know I'm ready. And I also get that. I completely agree with if someone goes like, you know, if you have to get married and everything, there's never a right time. And I completely agree with that as well. But it needs to feel the right moment. You know, I might never be all up and all in for like, you know what, I'm just gonna like settle down right now. But at least I know for a fact, like the day I realize that I'm taking a risk, but it feels good, and I know I'm not gonna suffocate in it, because I know I have like that strength built for me. I have my own space that I can crawl back if something goes wrong, take some breather, take some time and come back and sort it out. That's the day I'll know it's right for me. And problem with this is, here I am talking to you about this, right? But I know so many girls, even like, be it here or back home, they've settled, they've compromised. And I don't get me wrong, marriage is about compromising. Not that I'll know much about it, but my point is, why did you have to sacrifice so much so that you had to like, you know, just adjust to the cultural norm and
to fit into that box.
Exactly, to fit into that box. Why are you the only one to sacrifice so much? And that's where the fight starts, because it's not just about, oh, me convincing my family and coming to America and getting my postgrad degree. But right now I'm also fighting the fight of just protecting my own family, because it doesn't feel right when my mom calls and, you know, tells me her, like, she is sad because there are so many people calling her up, go like, why isn't your daughter getting married? Making her feel like, making me feel like that I'm the problem here. But here I am just trying to make my name out of all my hard work and, you know, like skills or experience that I've developed so far. So I feel like there will never, again, just like marriage, there'll never be a right time to, you know, to accomplish this fight that we are having right now, or have like a perfect result. Because at the end of the day, it's just very disappointing when we've been talking about it.
It's very exhausting, and it's a
very
layered
exhausting.
It's a layered conversation, because it's crazy how you and I, yes, our cultures are different, but look how the stories intersect. You feel me? And that's the American tapestry, that's the Caribbean tapestry, the Indian culture, the Asian culture, is that tapestry that women are not enough unless we are married. We see that play out in movies. We see that play out in real time, in terms of our value and how it's equated, right? Let's talk about it, because it is Women's History Month as we conclude. Now, there's a statement that I love: empowered women empower women. And I want to talk about that. How have you empowered another sister? Give me like a real life example of how you have played a pinnacle role in empowering another woman.
First, I just want to start by saying this phrase is one of my favorite phrases, right? Empowered women, empower women. And not only because this is something that I do want to see everyone doing, but also because this almost at one point feels like just a dream, you know? It feels like we have not achieved the actual meaning of the sentence yet. Like, here I am, probably you are empowering me right now. Let me just start by saying that as well.
Same.
Just talking about this, right? And I want to do the same for other people. But how many people have empowered me, like, you know, just supporting me, like even back home, right? And more importantly, like, your friends will empower you, your colleagues will do, but your family and society needs to empower you as well. And that's like the sad part. And like, when you asked me about a personal story, which actually happened like a few months back. So there was this girl I met here. She was not from Bangladesh, but she was from one of the developing countries. But we bonded over the fact that we both come from a very conservative family, a conservative society, a brown society, but more importantly, a Muslim society as well, right? We both share the same religion. And I was telling her how, like, you know, coming here has been a whole journey, how like there was someone who called up my mom and asked her, like, rather than congratulating her, like, oh, your daughter got the visa, congratulations. Instead of that, they went like, are you seriously gonna let her go before getting married? So that I heard that. She did not tell me this thing though. Like my mother, she knew I'll be so pissed just hearing about it. So she hid that for me for a while, but somehow I got to know it out. And by the time I was really cool about it, because I was leaving literally the next day. So I was like, yeah, that's not what happened. So I was sharing the story to the girl as well. And I remember she just sat and she listened to me like the entire time, right? But she did not say much. And I was like, is there anything you want to share with me as well? And she looked at me and she's like, I love the fact that you still have a supportive family. I love the fact that you're here and you are talking to your parents about it. However, I did not have the smoothest of journey. And I was like, what happened? So slowly we just grabbed a cup of coffee. We sat down and I knew like this is like, a solid girl time. Like I need to be there for her. And just because she got teary just by like thinking about it, right? She started by saying that how she was supposed to get married to a guy. The guy apparently broke the engagement and it was a big deal. I'm not sure exactly what was the reason. She wasn't comfortable enough like to tell me that, but she's like, the guy broke the engagement. And here, like, how in American society, breaking off engagement is just like, oh, I'm gonna give you the ring and everything, right? And it's heartbreaking, but you move on. In our culture, in the brown culture, especially in the Muslim, like, in my religion, basically, right? It's a big deal. And the sad part is it's usually like reflects on the girl. And they go like, maybe something's wrong with the girl. What did the girl do? What did the family do? And it takes a lot of courage for someone to actually, come out of your bedroom, just walk out and like accept the fact that, oh, I don't have an engagement right now. I love the fact that people, because right now we are in one of those generations that we're more educated, we see more, we talk about it more, so it does get easier for us to cope up with it. But again, like the society and what they think about us kind of brings us down. However, so this happened to her and she went to her family, took a few months to convince, but she's like, I do want to pursue my postgrad. So I want to come, I want to go to America. I want to do this. And she had one of her aunt here as well. And that's the only reason her parents allowed her to go to America, because she had someone, not because like, this is definitely an amazing country, but even this is sad. Like, you let your daughter go. I get it in terms of like protection, to have someone, to have a family there. But still, I feel like they should have that much of faith in them for them to like pursue their own journey. Right. Again, the only reason her parents let her come here because she had two of her aunts here. Fast forward, because I met her, in fact, last year. It was her second semester. It was my second semester as well, right? She called me up this one day. She's crying, right? Hysterically, and she's breaking down. She's like, can I come over? Can I see you? She did. And she's like, I need to go back home. I was like, what happened? Like, are you okay? Did anyone do anything? Did anyone say anything? She's like, no, there's a guy. And I was like, are you in love? That was her first question for some reason. Like, like, you want to go back home? That's a very big decision. I thought she'll go back home, she'll get engaged or whatever that is, and then she'll come back, right? And she's like, Fahria, you don't get it. I'm going back. I'm not completing my degree here at Hofstra. And I sat there and I looked at her and I was like, are you saying that you're going back for good to get married without even finishing your degree? She's like, yeah. And I sat there and then, tried to console her. I was like, listen, let's just stop crying. Tell me what happened. Like, how did all this happen? So the situation for her was her family basically found a guy. And the guy, and I quote, right? They said that we are willing to accept your daughter despite the fact her marriage broke. First of all, it wasn't even a marriage. It was just an engagement, right? And the statement that was issued by saying that we're willing to accept your daughter, that was too much. And I asked her, are you okay with that? Did you talk to the guy? Did you see the guy? And then he's like, I just saw his picture. I was like, are you telling me that you saw the picture and now they're asking you to come back without even talking to the guy, without even talking or like, video chatting, right? And she's like, see, that's the thing. My parents think it's a blessing that they hit a jackpot, that there is a guy who not only who not only has like a good career, but then again, I got to know what he did. Every career is a good career, right? But I honestly felt like with the comparison that my girl actually had a better career than him, right?
Yes.
But the guy, the fact that he's okay with marrying someone whose engagement broke, and he'll completely avoid the fact that, according to the society, something's wrong with her. This was a jackpot. Her parents hit a jackpot. I tried calling her parents, like, because she asked me not to. And I was like, let me give this a shot. Like, I have to, because I came back, not came back, but I came from my country just to, like, break this norm, break the stereotype, right? I can't let something similar like this happen to someone that I actually adore. And somehow, like, I did convince her in 3 days. I called up her parents. I tried, and I was like, with all, because I thought I might have some like respect or impact on that, given the fact we come from the same background. I'm Muslim, yes. They're Muslim, so maybe they'll hear me, just listen to what I have to say. The conversation lasted for 10 seconds.
Wow.
It did not obviously end well. I come from a family where, or like I come from a society where, you're not allowed to disrespect your elders. And I highly maintain that. I highly believe that. So I did not say anything like that, but it was just me requesting them to like send her back once she's married, at least. That wasn't even my intention for the call. I just wanted to like let them know, like, let her stay here, finish her education. And there will be a guy, like, some whom she'll have like a mutual connection with, the compatible rate will be nice. But yeah, that conversation didn't end well. They just like, you are not a part of her family. This is a personal thing. You're not even from our country, so don't interrupt. And they hung up on my face.
Wow.
And
Ooh,
it's
that's
sad.
Powerful.
It's so sad, the fact that I could not do much for her, because again, this, like, I'm a student here as well, right? And I'm a girl at the end of the day. We were the same age. So she did end up leaving the country in like few weeks, but I was able, because she did get married though. I'm not sure if she's happy or not. I don't want to comment on that. I really pray and hope she is. But one thing I was successful at doing so is, at least now she's continuing her education through online. Because her family was like, you do it here. Like in the country, we have like such good, amazing education and everything, right? But they wouldn't accept the credit. And she's like, I'm not going to waste 1 year of my life. So it was me constantly poking her like, no, you got to do this. Just fine, get done with the whole ceremony and everything, but let's get back to track. So right now we're actually taking a few courses together. We are like having a few online sessions and everything, but I'm just happy to be in touch with her.
I'm happy I'm happy about, because I was going to ask you, are you still in touch with her so you can still influence her in a positive way? Man, that's beautiful. Wow. Ooh, this is a powerful conversation. As we close off, yes, we can talk all night. As we close off, right? The conversation we started talking about immigrant students and as they migrate, right? Destination Unboxed, right?
Correct.
What does legacy look like for you as we close off this conversation? What does legacy look like for you in terms of your daily work and what you do? Before you get there, I know you spoke about your living in the States and how that's a little bit different. As people are listening and trying to even decipher if they should travel overseas for education, how did you go about finding a host family to live with? How did you go about finding it? Has it been a smooth process? And then we close up with legacy.
All right. Excited for that. But so for me, I did start off with living at the grad hall of Hofstra. That wasn't a smooth journey. You might think that was, but it actually wasn't a smooth journey for me there. And after my first semester, I knew like I had to get out, because it felt more systematic living there, right? Don't get me wrong. It has such a nice system in terms of like living standards and everything. Hofstra actually has one of the most nicest dorms here, right? But it's just like people you live with. So it was a constant like worry about me, or like it was an issue in my head, like, if I'm moving out, how does it guarantee that I'm gonna still find a good host family or someone, nice enough to live with? But I was lucky enough, and honestly, I feel like it's all about luck here, which is a bit tricky, but like do your research, talk to your sweet mess, because right now I live with two amazing women, and my house is actually pretty fun. It's a very multicultural house. There is me, who comes from Islam. We have we have someone from the Jewish community, and someone who's following the Christianity, comes from Russia and everything. And we celebrate everything here, right? This house has celebrated all sort of like starting from Hanukkah to Christmas, and now we're doing Eid ahead. So it's pretty amazing. So my suggestion for international student would be, first, to get out of your comfort zone, because I do know there are a lot of international students who prefers living with other people who come from their from the same society or community, even if it's from the same religion. But my honest suggestion would be just to like the whole trial and error thing, because you're here for a good while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do it. There are a lot of good, for example, if anyone wants to ask me who's nearby Hofstra, or even like here in New York, there are actually pretty good sites. But I would suggest to like go for the trusted sites provided by the university, because there's still like so much scam. And especially if you're like a young woman living in the city, you always have to have your own bag, do a like thorough research, talk to them. If you're going to a house, like to just check the room or the apartment, wherever that is, take someone with you. Like you always have to be cautious here. But again, like just go out of your comfort zone, and I promise that you'll have the most fun of your life. And just to meet some other people, live with them, have that multicultural experience that you probably won't have back home. This is something that will build you as a person.
I love that. I love that. Really quickly, before we wrap up and talk about legacy, what is one thing from your culture you'd like to share with Americans?
So I was actually talking about this literally like last night, right? The one culture or one thing that I would love to bring from Bangladesh is that, but then again, it's a complete personal thing. I don't expect like everyone to, agree with me, is that the respect that we have for like elders. Because this is something that I've noticed here. For example, even back in school, right? Because my school ended back in like 2012. So 2012 to 2030, but yeah. So even like when we had students who were just like few grades older than us, or like seniors, right? We still had some level of respect for them, right? It was never like if they wanted to, maybe like, for example, we went there, just grabbing some water and stuff like that, right? We let them do the thing first. And we did have like a mutual respect for that as well. Because what I realized, like if you respect your elders, if you like, keep that in mind, they're going to give the respect back to you. Unfortunately, I did face some difficulties or like some misunfortunate incident here where I know like even in my university or something, right? Because the other day, what I saw was someone was like videoing they're shooting their TikTok videos or wherever that was, right? And someone else, like maybe a grad student, probably a guy came and were talking to those girls and telling like, hey, I just have my coffee there. Is it okay if you get done, if you can wrap it up in like 2 minutes so that I can pass by? They were like, oh, maybe if you weren't this slow and old, you could have like come here before me,
Yeah. That's a no-go. That's a no-go.
Exactly. That's a no-go. Yeah. And even if it's, and my point is not even just about like respect in terms of like, students or anything, right? Respect in general, that I feel like, because for example, I might be really close to someone who's, 6-7 years older than me, but I do want to have the respect here. And that kind of I see do lack a bit when it comes to, for example, the working culture or even like the friend culture. Like I love the fact that age isn't a matter and everyone gets to it, because one of my housemates, she's 19 years old or 20 years old, and she's like my best friend, right? And here I am 28 and I'm just like jamming with it. But I also feel like there should be a sense of respect in either of the age gap. Because it just helps you, like, understand other people's problem. Because I don't want anyone to come, like, I don't want anyone like, 10 years younger than me, just come and like, talk back at me at times. But like situations can be solved in a much like, mannerful way in that way.
I love that. Respect and respecting our elders and yeah, and showing up for them. Absolutely. I agree. All right, girls. So let's close off now.
Yes.
Legacy. What does your legacy look like? I know you're super young, but you're so powerful in your own right. What does legacy look like for you? What do you envision in the next few years for yourself?
So, I mean, I did have few people ask me this question, right? And that makes me think a lot about this because I personally don't, I mean, I have my own belief, I have my values, but I also cannot really like specifically say what legacy means to me because, you know, like when we ask about people, legacy might refer to like the general impact that a person's life or actions have on the world, on future generation. And there are so many other women leaders that, you know, we are always looking up to, right?
Yes.
But if you ask me personally, and I'll keep it short, my legacy is to just make any change in any like anyone's life. Like I feel like that, you know, I've left a name of me, or if I've successfully built a legacy of mine. If, for example, I see more people or more girls like my friend who went back home, who can actually fight back, who can actually take the phone and go like, I'm not coming back home. I've started a journey here and I'm gonna finish it. And after that, we're gonna have a talk and see where my journey goes from there, right? If someone just remembers me while having this conversation, I'll feel successful about the fact that I've left a legacy. So that will be my success story. Like I do not envision myself like later down the year to have, if I do become successful in terms of like, you know, having a popular name, that'll be amazing. But the fact that if I can build like a life for myself where I feel like I don't have to depend on anyone, if I feel like I come back home and I know that there isn't like anyone else's thought that I'm bringing home with, and I know that this is my safe spot. If I can build the same thing for my younger sibling, for my other female friends, and I know that, you know, if someone comes to me and go like, hey, I took your advice and I'm applying for this job, that'll be more than enough for me. So
I love that.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, like circling back to the line, the day the statement of empower women feels like a reality and not a dream, I'll know that'll be a successful legacy.
I love that. Fahria Tasneem,
Yes.
MBA student, trailblazer, and I'm also going to say game changer. Right? Game changer. Yes. You have impacted my life in the short time we have gotten to know each other, and continue along that journey. Whatever it looks like, continue advocating for others, continue showing up for others. And my friend, you are successful. You are successful, not by society, what society deems as successful. The fact that you are able to advocate and stand in the gap for another person, baby girl, the future is bright. Thank you so much for joining us on the Chop It Up podcast. Oh my gosh, you guys. Thank y'all for listening. I hope you listen all the way through because we have an amazing giveaway. We are going to be giving away one lucky listener. So guys, I hope you listen all the way through because you're going to get a gift card from Target. So make sure you DM us, make sure you follow us, like the story, leave us a comment, and reach out to us on the Chop It Up platform. And one lucky winner will be gifted a free Target gift card. You guys, see you on the next episode. Bye.